What is going on, everybody? My name is Lamont. I've been a full-time trader for 7 years now, part of the ChartGuys team for more than half of that, where I head up our futures room and our swing report. In this video, we will go over the overall market, cover some of the hype sectors, hit you with some trade zones, update you on some prior trade zones, and that is it. So let's get into it. All right, so starting off here with SPY. So pretty much everything that we were talking about regarding this structure last week in SPY, at least we should have been talking about it last week in SPY, can now be applied to this structure. So last week we did not have this, these four sessions here. And so what we were saying was, okay, well, if there's no gap, but as long as the breakout point 537.01 is still supported, then these buyers are doing just fine. And even if they did break under the breakout point, then the buyers would still be confident if they could hold over the value area high at 535.71 and the point of control at 534.44. So obviously last week we had a third consecutive week of rally. So on Monday we broke out and made a decent amount of space to defend this local demand zone. And so that's pretty much what happened, right? As of right now, at least, the low of Friday's session was made pretty much right off of the value area high of this structure. So it's not the best case scenario. The best case scenario would have been don't even come back down to 544.12 after breaking out like that. But you can't always get what you want. And so that being said, the next best case scenario would be to hold over the value area high and to not come down and test the point of control, which is what happened. Now, obviously, this, we didn't exactly bounce strongly off of this area. So, we could very well next week break down under these levels. But if that does not happen, then that will be the best case scenario for these buyers going forward. Okay, so there's a good amount of space to set a potential higher low over 539.59. That's this low over here. And anything over that's going to be good for a daily higher low. There is a decent amount of volume that was traded here. There's actually more volume traded here than there is down here. So even if we do happen to hold this area, there's the potential that these buyers will have problems over here, right? So we'll be mindful of this high volume area next week at it's about 547.5. Right, so if the buyers start having problems at 547.5, that's going to be an early indication that we'll probably see further retracement or at least more balance, right? So that is pretty much it. I don't think we even came close. Yeah, so we were looking for a pullback play down here. I still like it here, because I would like for the hourly time frame to be extended, the RSI at least. I would like for that to be extended. And I think if we were to get it down to there, it would be more than extended. So I'm okay with that. Like I would much rather have it down here. And because we did advance a little bit, something like this, we can move it up a little bit to something like this. Although our targeting should probably stay more or less the same. And I think that was based off of the R2 for the month. So, it's still a very good trade from an R perspective, 3R. So that is, wait, hold on a second here. Yeah, that is pretty much it. So hourly oversold conditions into this area, we'll look for fills here, we'll look for fills here, we'll look for fills down here. And then if we get all the way back down under this high, it's not the best look. It would still be okay, right? Because, it's a good amount of space for another monthly higher low. So to get back under this high would not be ideal, but anything over 493.86 is going to be good for a monthly higher low. And the weekly time frame also has a good amount of space for a higher low over 518.36. So no biggie. Buyers still looking okay here. All right. Moving on to the Qs. So the Qs also obviously did not pull back into the trade zone. We're still watching the same thing, right? 471.29, the gap to fill down to 468.14. This is the key. If the sellers cannot even fill this gap, they don't negate this change. And filling the gap doesn't even bring you back down into the demand zone. They have to get back under 465.74 in order to even test the highs of this local demand zone. This is not really any kind of demand. This is all pretty much just one-way trade. I know there's a little bit of overlap here, but it's more or less one-way trade. On the daily time frame, we didn't really balance. Didn't trade sideways like this, and definitely didn't trade sideways like this. So daily retracement is underway. Lots of space for a higher low to be set over 461.53. I still like this as our trade zone, but let me just check out the hourly RSI. It would be extended even before we got down there. So again, I think this is still a very reasonable trade zone. I'm going to stick with this and not be like more aggressive because it would be oversold, before our trade zone hits. But, you know, I would rather it get beaten up or do something where you get like a little lower high and then a lower low like this. Like you get oversold, lower high, and then lower low. I would prefer to stick with that, a little bit more of a conservative zone, because, again, I only see you guys once a week. And so if we're going to play it, you know, from like that kind of a perspective, like swing trading on the, I guess, week plus, we should be a little bit more cautious. So I'm going to stick with this. I think it's still a very reasonable trade zone. You know, if you're a QQQ trader, 3.27% risk is not that bad. And I believe this targeting was also based off of the R2 for the year. So that's pretty much it for the Qs. Again, you know, lots of space for a weekly higher low. Anything over 443.06 will be good for one. And the monthly time frame as well, decent amount of space for a higher low to be set over 413.07. All right, so that's pretty much it for the QQQ. Moving on now to the Dow. So the Dow, this is notable, right? The fact that it's not going to come back, well, that it hasn't yet come back down here, and looking like they're trying to defend this area. Really, we should update it to this at this point, right? Because that's really what we care about, this local demand zone here. So we'll just steal this from this guy here, and we'll just take that, and we'll adjust the dates. I'll adjust the dates later. I don't want to waste your time here. It's valuable. Okay, so we should care about this guy because this is essentially the local demand zone that has yet to be traded through. And you do pop under the high of the level. You trade under the value area high, but you fail to get to the point of control. It's very notable. However, at the same time, you know, it's hard to ignore the fact that you are currently having, these buyers, I mean, are currently having problems with the value area low of this supply zone. So, you know, it's a solid bounce, but you are just looking for a weekly lower high. You set a weekly higher low, but you're looking for a weekly lower high under 401. Now, you know, because you're balancing, I don't put as much weight on the price action trends, but again, you just have to call it for what it is. There is space for a weekly lower high, and as long as the buyers are having problems getting over the supply zone, that weekly lower high is on the table. So that is really it. There's space for a daily higher low over 383.63, and I'm gonna stick with this. You know, like this is very choppy to the left here. There is no reason why we can't continue to balance within this structure, right? So just basically over the 2022 high. This one was set in 2022. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that, right? Because right now, what we're pretty confident in is that the 2022 high is more or less secure as long as this demand zone is in play, and so this trade zone is based off of this guy, and I think that's still the most like reasonable trade zone, because, you know, will we get it? Maybe we'll miss. That's fine. You know, trading is not about capturing every trade. You know, trading is about capturing the trades that fit within your parameters, and also about not taking trades that don't fit in your parameters, right? Because, you know, you need to control for something, right? Like if you are trading off of a whim, you're trading off of feeling, you can't reproduce that accurately, you know, or consistently. So, you know, we don't want to be in that kind of headspace. You know, and the worst thing in the world is like if you take a trade that is outside of your system based on a hunch or whatever, and then the market rewards you for it. Now you're kind of conditioned to go off the cuff, not have a plan. In the long run, that's going to hurt you. You know, so we only want to take trades that fit within our edge. All right, so that's pretty much it for the Dow. Bigger picture, you know, it is trying to set this monthly higher low. Technically, they did set the monthly higher low at 376.14, but just didn't really see that much follow through on it. So again, you know, it's bigger picture, it's okay as long as we're holding over all of the structure, but you got to call it for what it is, and it's just not advancing well, right? We're just kind of hanging out going, so it almost looks like gold. It almost looks like gold with like that higher high that like follow through and just trading sideways and break out over the major highs. All right, so that's pretty much it. No change to the Dow trade zone. I think still reasonable to be looking for it down here. And I believe it actually had daily oversold conditions if we came back all the way down here. And we actually haven't had that in a while. The last time was down here. Now this is based off of the close. So technically it was, I think it looks like, nope, missed it there. We actually haven't had that in quite a long time. So I like this setup here, daily oversold conditions into this key demand zone. I like it like that. All right, so IWM, the small caps. Let's see, the trade zone should be the trade zone of old that we're still watching. Yes. So, you know, this is still the most reasonable location, right? This is the cheapest place to find out whether or not we're going to continue to balance within this range, which again has been dictated by these two structures. That's what happened over here, and then this big old structure made for this high and this high and this high, and now it's just been a battle, right? For those two structures, that's these thin bands on either side of all of this chop. So, I still like it down here, but again, you have to call it for what it is. This little lower high, or it's not, I guess technically it's not really lower high, but this little lower low that didn't see follow through, and then another breakdown under this point of control that hasn't seen follow through, it kind of looks like the opposite, right, of pretty much what had happened here, right? So battle for it. So I still would not be too surprised, like if we were to lower low and then come test this area, because at this point, this is potentially a daily higher low being set here at 198.46. Got to break 200.41 next week in order to set that daily higher low there. They're playing defense off of this big point of control, but at the same time, so are the sellers. The sellers are also playing defense off of this local supply zone, and as of right now, it had two rejections from the lows of this supply. So while they are playing solid defense off of 199.26, if they can't find acceptance back over 201.65, they don't negate the change of this breakdown. So, I would not be surprised if we were to make another move down to these lows still. And, I would prefer that. That's where there's more edge. I mean, there was a setup that I missed Friday, but yesterday, but yeah, yesterday, but that's more of a day trade thing, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But it is my bread and butter setup. If you're interested, though, you can check out our community. Links in the description below. All right, so that's really it. I don't really have much else to say about it. We're just still hanging out, trading sideways. Technically, you're looking for a weekly higher low over 191.34. I think Dan is looking for that play. He's already got a position. I've been day trading RTY, the futures contract, and then just rolling those proceeds into shares of IWM because I also am looking for what Dan's looking for. Dan is looking for the potential of rotation into small caps if the overall market is going to, the rally is going to broaden out. The small caps just need some love as well. And it's been a pretty frustrating endeavor trying to get a swing trade on with the futures. And so, because it's very leveraged, right? So I'm not exactly I don't really want to ride a lot of damage, So my logic is then any day trading proceeds from RTY, I'll just roll into IWM shares for free. So if you're interested in, watching that shake out as I do it live, in the chat room, check it out. Links in the description below. Anyway, so that is pretty much it. If you're an ETF trader, I would just stick to this guy down here. And I think you would have daily oversold conditions as well. Yeah, you'd probably have daily over. It depends on how it comes down there, right? Because you'll notice how choppy it is, so the RSI hasn't really moved much. But if you start drilling, then this line will come to meet with the price. So daily oversold conditions into this lower area, I think is a very reasonable trade. You might even want to adjust this. I know this is our old trade zone of old, so I don't want to move it. So I'll just clone it. Something like this, I think, is pretty reasonable. Try to get back to this prior low. All right. All right, so the dollar, I think this dollar is now beyond our stop. No, it's actually still flirting with it, 105.560. So, obviously I'm not holding my breath for this trade. I mean, I didn't take this trade, but if you did take this trade, you already had a lot of opportunity to take some profits off of your position. So hopefully you have done so. The ultimate target was looking down here. So that's a 4.4 hour trade. And personally, I think you're when you're at 3R already, I think it's pretty reasonable to be taking at least partial profits. So hopefully you've done so, and you're looking at at worst a break even or a small win. Hopefully, if you took some profits. If not, that's fine. I mean, I think you should. I like to do that. I mean, it depends, right? If you're the kind of type of trader who front loads your risk, then you should be taking profits along the way. If you're the kind of trader who likes to add to their winners as it works, then obviously that's not the same case. So but even then, right, if you're the kind of trader who adds to winners, you still want to be peeling out at targets. So anyway, all right, so the dollar is actually, this is pretty interesting, right? Because you have this little weekly It's never confirmed downtrend. There was never a lower high and a lower low. It did break to a weekly lower low. So I guess the monthly chart's the better look. Potentially setting a higher low over here at 103.480. Daily chart's bullish now as well. Higher low and higher high. Higher low supports at 104.735. But what I really care about is the fact that you just didn't really make much ground back down to this key demand zone. So this demand and this supply has been pretty much dictating price ever since November of 2022. And what's the buyer's objective here, right? The buyer's objective is, of course, to get over this supply zone. This supply zone was problematic here, was problematic here, and was problematic here. Even this local structure was made off of those highs. Was made off of that supply. So if you're not going to come all the way down to here, because there were only so many steps built on the way up, right? Like you built this step, right? And this step was not violated. You built this step and this step wasn't violated. You built this step here and it was violated with no follow through. So they failed to get back down to the next area where there should be meaningful demand. That's a very notable failure here. So if you're going to fail coming down to the next area of demand, and then if you can find acceptance over technically this supply zone over here, this local supply zone, well, then it's right back to looking at this again, right? So the buyers are positioned pretty well, pretty much just like here. It's pretty much a repeat of this, where they're just grinding under this guy. So acceptance over 106.335 will probably put some pressure on, like commodities and assets in general. All right. Would also theoretically, slow the US economy, right? Because when the dollar is strong, exports are more expensive. So yeah, that's definitely something to look out for, because the best case scenario, given for future monetary policy is the soft landing, right? What we want to see is the economy stay strong and then rates come down, because it's not a good look if the Fed has to bring rates down in order to try to do some repairs to a weak economy. So a strong dollar would probably make it would make the market probably more sensitive to econ news. So this is definitely notable. We, for a long time, the dollar's just been chopping around, so we haven't really had to think about it much. But if it does enter breakout mode, especially after balancing for so long, that could be problematic. So we shall see. All right, so the VIX is still hanging out near the lows, stair-stepping down. Let's check the fear and greed index again. Oh, by the way, like I got a comment last week about short bias. I do not have a short bias. If I had a short bias, then there would be sell setups. But every single setup that we've done so far has been a buy setup, right? If I recall. So if anything, I feel like that just shows the commenter's bias, right? The commenter is probably very bullish, and anything that is not very bullish is perceived as bearish. But I think it's important to consider the sentiment that just because you're not willing to buy doesn't mean that you should sell, right? A lot of the times doing nothing is the right move. It's like if you're like playing a sport or whatever, right? Like you're not always doing something, especially if you play like the backfield or whatever, right? Like in soccer, you're a defender and everything's happening on the other side. You're just kind of eyeing it, right? So, or if you're the goalie, you're just kind of hanging out, right? There's not always something that needs to get done, depending on what kind of an operator you are. But for pretty much all operators, shouldn't always be doing something. Cash is a position, and it's okay to pause, right? Or even retreat sometimes, right? Taken out. Like all opportunity comes from space and time. You should allow yourself the space and time to think through what you want your next operation to be. So I would like my next operation to be another replay of the monthly higher low, because I smashed that. So I would prefer to just wait for that setup, because this buy looks like this, right? We have now rallied for 8 weeks off of that monthly higher low play. So I would just prefer not to make these plays for like daily higher lows or whatever in any meaningful fashion. At least I would prefer to now look for like a weekly higher low. Hey, tangent over. So the VIX again is still really much at its lows, and the fear and greed index is really not that high either. So it's not that greedy yet. So like you would think that there would be some meaningful consolidation sooner rather than later, but there's really no signs of that as of right now. I guess if the dollar were to start ripping, And of course, if the VIX were to start spiking, that would be notable, especially if the VIX starts rising with the market, right? Like if we continue to grind higher in the market and then the VIX also continues to move higher, that shouldn't be the case, right? That would just suggest that there are more and more market participants that are starting to hedge their bets, essentially, right? They're probably long and they want to buy, they want to start being, they're long, assets, and they want to start being long volatility to protect against the potential of, well, volatility, right? And because we've been grinding higher, volatility will probably be, if volatility is going to increase, I mean, it's probably going to be reselling. So that is because again, the nature of the buying right now is kind of grindy. It's not like ripping higher or anything. It's just stair stepping up. It's not quite as grindy as like back in what was it, like before COVID? It was so grindy here. We had like 0.5% days, so many 0.5% days. It's not quite as bad as this, but it is still pretty grindy. It's not a bad thing. That was brutal. It's so boring. Anyway, so anyway, that's pretty much it for the VIX. So just watch out for if the market continues to rally and the VIX also starts to move up. That'll be, something that we're watching out for. All right. Oh, actually, one more thing about the VIX. I do want to check out the TD sequential. I was like peeping into this because there's like a really sick weekly play that's on the sell side. Obviously, we're not even close to that, but I've noticed that these perfected nines on the weekly are really great signals. And for a long time, TD sequential was like the golden child for analysts. Like for a long time, it was only available I think in Bloomberg terminals, and so that's like what, 20 grand or 25 grand or something a month. And so if you didn't have access to that, then you didn't really have access to the TD sequential system unless you were Android or write your own code. So yeah, I really like it. Okay, so anyway, moving on to some of these hype sector names or whatever. Obviously, NVDA is one of the most hyped names right now, right? That's probably an understatement. All right, so I don't this I think this was the trade zone that we shared last week. I don't remember because we did have community members ask about it, so I may have made adjustments here. I do apologize if that's the case. But anyway, so right now it's pretty much doing something rather similar to SPY and QQQ, or rather SPY, coming back down to test this local demand zone. It's obviously showing you a little bit more strength, right? Because it didn't touch the value area high. Now, they're not perfectly equivalent zones, but the idea is this is the local demand zone. Best case scenario is to hold over 125.59. If you can't hold over 125.59, next best case scenario is to hold over 122.23 and then 119.82. Once we're under 119.82, once we find acceptance under 119.82, that will be a bit of a red flag for these buyers. Okay, so daily retracement's underway, looking for a higher low over 117.01. Initially, we're looking at a drop and pop at the breakout point 125.59, and so the best case scenario now is to just not come down here, bounce for this to set this higher low. Got to break over 130.63 in order to set that daily higher low at 124.30, and I would not be surprised to just look for some balance, something like this longer term balance. I would not be surprised by that. Just like how we had. That's just kind of how the market works, right? Like, obviously I'm not predicting anything, but typically what will happen is when you're trending, you'll trend, very short duration balance, very short duration balance, trend, very short duration balance, trend, very short duration balance. And then after a series of these, then you'll start to trade sideways in a larger fashion. So I would not be surprised if that's what's going to happen here, because we've stepped up, trade sideways, stepped up, trade sideways. And so if we don't see a really fast higher high, like if we see a higher high that doesn't see follow through, or if we see a lower high, right? Then because this is kind of similar, right? Like this selling candle is pretty similar to this candle. It's a bearish engulfing candle. It was high volume. It's a bearish engulfing candle. It was pretty high volume, above average at least. And so I would not be surprised, right, if we've just met some supply, right, and some perceived supply or actual supply, and now we have to work through it, right? They have to grind through all of this supply left behind here, right, and they fail to do so here, and so you end up finding more selling pressure here until you step into buyers off of these steps that were made on the way up. So I don't hate doing something like this, actually. I don't hate doing something like this. So I'm just going to make an adjustment to this. Something like this, I think, is pretty reasonable, right? Essentially just looking for these two structures to contain price if the sellers do happen to press the issue meaningfully in the next week or so. And it's even even expanding the trade zone to that degree is really just looking for a very healthy weekly higher low, right? Because that much retracement is not much retracement at all. That's really just down to the 382. It's not even down to the 50. So, you know, the chart is fine, bigger picture. Obviously, things can change quickly, but you just have to call things for what they are in the moment. And so I think something like this is pretty reasonable. I believe the hourly would probably start getting extended if we did come into the trade zone from there. Yeah, you'd start to have that hourly oversold condition, and it is a back burner because we haven't had hourly oversold since back here, and then we did trend really hard out of a base, especially. So I rather like it a little bit lower. I think it makes a little bit. I think it makes sense like that. Okay, so we shall see. And we could probably just kill this guy. Well, I mean, we could leave it up. It doesn't hurt, but it's not super relevant actually. So that's it for NVDA. Moving on to Ethereum. So Ethereum has like the backdrop of the ETF news. That's what caused this pump. And so, you know, I haven't really been super dialed in, but there lots of folks in the chat room have been sharing like filings and stuff like that that seemingly is suggesting that it's moving along. ETF approval, I mean, is moving along. So, you know, I think this is a very reasonable play, looking to, you know, hold a back test of this local demand zone. As of right now, these buyers are holding up really well because the breakout point is 3356.31, and so if you don't find acceptance under 3356.31, you don't even begin to negate the change of this breakout. This was the ETF news reaction. So, and this is the balance, right, that they broke out of. So, you know, you can pretty much just perceive it as long as this candle is not wiped, then the optimism for the ETF approval is still present, you know? And so if you can't get back under the highs of this range where the ETF breakout came from, well, then obviously this area is acting as demand, right? It could not be more clear, right? The market has already told you, hey, listen, we find this structure to be important. And so if we do happen to see lower lows, get the daily oversold, which I think it would be. Yeah, it would be. I think this is a very reasonable trade zone, right? And that's pretty much it. There's not much else to say. You know, it's like a big old weekly EQ, and you're looking for a higher low over 2814.12. I don't really care about this little rinky-dink one. There's no reason, though, why this EQ couldn't tighten up for longer. And so, again, you know, I'm always going to err on the side of caution in these videos. I honestly feel like that's best anyway. Like, you should get comfortable missing. People or traders are often too concerned with like maximizing their like trades or like getting every single trade and maximizing the potential of every trade. Think about the expectations that puts on you. You know, whereas if you kind of lower the bar and just think more from like a protective perspective, right, and think more from like a ease of execution, you know, what's going to happen, right? Things will be less challenging and you'll probably learn more along the way, because that's kind of how you get into flow, right? When you are flowing, the thing can't be too challenging that you have to stop because you're getting wrecked every now and then, right? When you're flowing, every decision feels very easy, right? And if you flow long enough and you make these easy decisions, these good easy decisions long enough over time, well, then you're able to flow in more advanced ways, right? And I'm sure every single one of you watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about, because you're all good at something, right? Just think about what you're really good at and what flow was like in the beginning, right? Like when you first achieved it. Maybe you play music and you achieve flow playing like a piece for novices, and then maybe you played for 5-6 years, or actually maybe hours are better, like 6,000 hours, and now you can play pieces that are far more complex and just flow through it, right? Well, how did you get there? You know, it wasn't through banging your head over incredibly challenging. You didn't jump to the hard stuff right away. You did what was achievable, or reasonably achievable for you if you stretched a little bit, right? And you did that many, many times until you got to whatever mastery that you have achieved. And if you've not achieved mastery in anything at all, you should give it a shot. You know, pick up a hobby and something that, you know, that, I don't know, enriches your life, and you should experience that, right? Because, you know, it's very helpful. If you're trying to learn trading, it's really helpful to borrow from all of the skills or all the ideas that you've already acquired from something that you're already good at. Because cognition, you know, analog, right? Cognition is based on analog comparison. So if you can parallel your other experiences to trading, you know, it's going to facilitate your process, your learning process. Anyway, that's too many tangents for this video, huh? All right, so that's pretty much it. Daily oversold conditions into this demand zone, I think, is very reasonable. All right, so Bitcoin, you know, a little bit of a red flag to come back under this value area high. The best case scenario, of course, would have been to hold over the value area high of this key structure sitting at the 2021 highs, excuse me. But, you know, that's not the case as of right now. So, you know, not great. That being said, if we do break this value area high, but these sellers continue to fail coming down to the point of control at 61003.36, then, you know, that would be a notable failure. So that's what the buyers want to see now. They want to see an inability to get back down to the POC. But if they do get down to the POC, it's still okay, right? Like it's not ideal, but it's still okay as long as you're holding above it, just like we held above here, just like we, you know, drop and pop there, just like we drop and pop there, drop and pop there, drop and pop there, and held here. And here is where we, you know, put that last trade on for Bitcoin. So if we lose this low, I'll just stop out of the runner, no big deal, and then we'll look to reset a little bit. I think we would have daily oversold conditions down there though, so we could move our stop back down here, and then if we get stopped out, it would be just for a very small win. I think I'm just gonna stop out here though, personally. I would not fault you for moving your stop down there. It's no problem because we initiated trade here, we chopped it up here, and then we walked the stop up. So, you know, stopping out here would be fine. You could book some more profits too, like before you walk that stop down to ensure that you would walk away with something, and then with your stop under here, that's fine too. I'm just gonna stop out the rest if we lose this guy, and then probably just look for a very similar play, looking for a lack of acceptance under the POC. I'll just reinitiate if anything. Like if we drill down here, things get very extended, we don't see follow through, down to the value area low, and then pop back over the point of control, I'll just buy that again and then throw my stop under the low, chop it up no later than the value area high, chop it up again here, no later than here, and then just kind of reset a bit. It actually hasn't been daily oversold either since August of 2023, so almost a year. So that would essentially be a back burner trade. You came really close, but no cigar. All right, so that is pretty much it for Bitcoin. Moving on to GME. So GME didn't really do much of anything. So that's just, again, kind of how markets have to work, right? It's going to expand greatly, right? So you have a lot of expansion here, and then you have contraction. So we're contracting right now in here, and we're also contracting with this within this little daily structure. You know, I still would prefer down here. Like, does it get down there? I have no idea. No one has any idea. You know, like if you're out here leaving comments about, you know, it's not going to do something, I know that you're probably relatively new to markets, right? And that you've probably drank the Kool-Aid a little bit, right? Which I'm not judging you. We've all been there. It's all good. But you know, it's only the empty cup that can be full. I'm so sorry to go on another tangent, but it's only the empty cup that can be full. And when you trade the markets, anything can happen, right? Anything can happen in life. Like you really can't be too certain about what you think is reality. For all you know, you are crazy and you are in a insane asylum somewhere, or just in a cave or somewhere like out in the wild tripping on, you know, psychedelics or whatever. You cannot be sure about what is around you. You can only be sure that you like exist in some way, right? Like Descartes said, right? I think, therefore I am. So, you know, so again, it's only the empty cup that can be full. You should definitely keep an open mind to anything, right? Because, well, anything can happen. So I don't know what's going to happen. I never know what's going to happen. I only know what I will do if that thing that I would like to happen does happen. And that's all we get in life. You know, like there's no guarantees. Contracts can be broken, promises are broken, people get divorced, whatever. So anyway, I would still like it down here, right? Because I know that this is the key spot. Like, why am I interested down here? It's because, well, this guy is a very key structure. If we don't trade through this, then we don't do any of this or any of this. And so after failing to see follow through over this massive area of supply and then this little hourly supply over here, it's very reasonable to be, I mean, look at what this market, this asset has done, right? Ever since 2021. What has it done, right? It's just traded under this, right? And over this. It's literally what it's done for years now. You know, to think that we can't come back down here, I don't know. It's kind of odd, right? Like, would you have said that over here? I don't know. Anyway, so again, I don't know what'll happen, but if we get daily oversold conditions into this area, that's when I'll start being interested in looking for pass back overplays in this zone. I'm not going to trade it, you know, blindly, like fill. I'm going to be more active because, you know, it's a heck of a mover. So the volatility favors shorter term operators. If you're an experienced short term operator, this is great. The volatility is great. So it's not there right now. But if it were to come in, if it were things were to get volatile, if it were to drill, get things extended, you know, use up some selling power, then yeah, I'm very interested in fading the sellers if they were to come back down here. So no change to this idea, and nothing really happened last week. I know that Katie's got like what, like 20 shares for 20 or whatever, but that man has seen like, you know, $100 million swings. Like, I don't think he would care that much. But you know, I can almost guarantee you that he was red. I mean, he was red throughout a lot of this, right? You know, if you you look back in his original post and people were ragging on him, right, as he was just continuing to accumulate. So I don't think he's shy. You know, I don't think he's shy when it comes to drawdown. So I don't really believe in that. There's, you know, a base or whatever. That's my opinion. You know, you can disagree. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. So anyway, that's pretty much it for GME. So CCJ, also no change on this, right? I do not love that we popped and dropped at the all-time high resistance over here at 56 bucks. And this key supply is being problematic, or rather is potentially going to be problematic again because we have now rejected from the value area high. So if we reject from the value area high and then find acceptance back under 50.22, that is not a good look. That would not be good. So eyes on 50.22. You can see how, you know, this guy, it's held price nearly perfectly recently. We sold puts in the chat room. I closed out a bunch on this balance. I'm just holding some, and they're 48 puts. I forget when they expire, but I would be fine with taking assignment down here, right? Because I've already collected the credit from that. And even if you get put the shares, you still keep the credit that you sold it for, so you have reduced cost basis. So that's like probably like $3 total reduced. So even if I take assignment at 48, where the strike is sold, you're really getting it at 45, which is all the way down here. So, you know, I like that kind of a play. But I would still be, if you have, obviously if you didn't do that, you're not in our chat room, you didn't do that, then, you know, just hang out here, right? That's fine. I think this is very reasonable. Daily oversold conditions into the lows of this demand zone, into this demand zone. Very reasonable trade zone. I think this is, you know, pretty tasty, honestly. I might do this trade idea with shares. Like, as soon as the daily starts to get oversold, I might buy some shares as well. Maybe even, you know, try like a risk reversal kind of a play. It's one of my new plays that I'm enjoying. So that is really it. That's really it. Looking for a weekly higher low. So this trade zone is set up for a potential weekly higher low or a weekly lower low that lacks follow through, kind of like this lower low lacked follow through here. All right. Okay, moving on to TAN. So TAN came into our trade zone, bounced to our target, higher high, no follow through, back into the trade zone. It is do or die time here. You really don't want the buyers, I mean, really don't want to get back under 42.02 because, well, you know, this is a decent amount of demand. This is a decent amount of demand to cut right through it like butter. That means we're probably bigger picture continuing to balance. So bit of a red flag. Obviously, we have a lot of profit cushion. If you took this trade over here, that already surpassed the target. If you took, and if you, I mean, I wouldn't fault you if you missed this one, but if you did happen to grab that one, got some profit cushion there as well. If you're still, you know, walking a runner up from here, I suggest the stop be under this 42 level. And if it stops out, that's fine. I think at this point, if you've done nothing, you've not taken any trade at all, I think you have to revert back to this guy, right? Like, because that's the key. That's the key structure. That's this guy. And as long as we're holding over this guy and under this guy, then there's really no change to this chart, you know? So I would scrap this idea. If you're like, if this is your first time here, or if you were, you know, if you did this play, chopped it up, and you stopped it out, and you've not reinitiated, which is fine, because you only just recently got hourly oversold, I would move this all down now, right? back down to here. I mean, whatever. We can just use that again. Don't even, whatever. Forget this stuff. And then just use this same trade zone again, because I believe you would have daily oversold conditions. The daily would get oversold here. And again, it's not been oversold in quite some time. It's not a back burner because it wasn't trending hard, but it hasn't been daily OS in a while. And the last time that it kissed it, you know, we did see some bounce there. So, and that's not as good location. This is much better location. Extension with into location, that's the ideal context in my opinion. That's my, you know, that's how I find edge. Extension into a key demand or extension into a key supply. So if we get extension, continue to drill, this is the key demand zone, this big guy over here. All right, so that's pretty much it for TAN. And then finally for MSOs, this might be the last week that I cover MSOs. I guess you can let me know in the comments if you really want MSOs to continue to be covered, but this is just not a good look. You know, rising wedge, broke bear, couldn't hold over this key level here of this key zone. I mean, you have to hold over this guy to continue doing this, right? And so these pop and drops here over this guy here, and then over here they got caught up here. Same structure catches them, same structure catches them. Now you're back under this guy. If you're under this guy, you should expect this kind of price action. So this is kind of like a last ditch trade zone because there is a decent amount of demand here. So this idea was just based off of the top of this structure sitting on top of this key demand zone, right? Because, you know, if you don't come back down under here, it's the same idea as this, right? Like if you come over here, expect this. If you come under here, expect this, right? So basically this trade zone was designed on not coming back down here, because coming back down here would be pretty much the worst case scenario, right? Where you're just looking at more bigger picture sideways, and man, you know, election season is right around the corner. So if you're not going to run into that, I don't know, you know. So and just anecdotally, like all of our local dispensaries, they are having a hard time turning profits. My guy over here, oh gosh, I forgot his name. He just lives like literally, you can see his shop from one of my windows on the other side of the home. Yeah, he told me that he makes more money selling illegal cigarettes than he does on any of his weed stuff. So, you know, it might just be an issue where profitability is difficult for these MSOs. So, whatever. I don't want to bore you with fundamental stuff, but it's still very reasonable trade zone. You can see how you did bounce out of the highs of the trade zone. So there is some perceived demand coming out of here, out of this area. But this bounce is still very weak. This bounce does not negate the change from this local breakdown without coming here. So this is the daily no change level now. 750. If you can't find acceptance over 750, then obviously this breakdown is not negated, and we should expect lower lows. Okay, so I still think this is a reasonable trade zone, although again, I would prefer for there to be extension. There was probably hourly extension when we came into it over here. Yeah, so the hourly did get oversold when it came into our trade zone. So again, extension into our area, that's the key. Like having just the extension is not enough. Having just the location is not enough. Like it's gonna give you more edge, but we want as much edge as possible. So personally, I prefer to have that confluence of again, oscillator extension, in this case RSI, and the location. So that's pretty much it. This was a doozy. So yeah, if you've hung around this long, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for sharing some of your time and energy with me. Oh, I forgot to do the plugs. If you are interested in what we do here at the Chart Guys, just know that we are doing a giveaway from June 24th to July 1st. The link will be coming soon. We don't have that link yet, but we're doing free courses. I don't know the structure of the giveaway, so stay tuned. We have an open house June 25th. I will drop the link in the description to this video. So that's just the open house. We'll show you the live stream that we do every morning. Truck Out Lori is going to do that. And then also Dan is going to do a Q&A on Sunday, June 30th. Again, the link is coming soon. So that's it. Again, I appreciate you sharing some of your time and energy with me. If you wouldn't mind hitting us with a like and a subscribe, a little sacrifice to the algo guys, we would appreciate that very much. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope to see you guys soon. Farewell.